Hey guys, welcome back to Your Lake Fork Guide, and today we're going to give you some really in-depth tips on how to win the biggest bass fishing tournament of the year with the biggest cash payouts right here at Lake Fork. For those that live in the area, you'll well know that it rained a ton this past week, and I'm actually coming to you at the end of that week. I was supposed to be filming, tried to move the schedule around. Rained for over 3 days straight, just couldn't get on the water. I can't film in the rain. Even if I waterproof the GoPros and get out there, the water droplets just get all over the camera. You really can't see what's going on. I just really don't have a way to film when we have the rain going on like we've had. So, didn't really know what to do. I was kind of at a loss for what to do for you guys, but the Sealy Outdoors Big Bass Splash is coming up. Well, you guys are watching this on Monday, but 2 weeks from today is when the Sealy Outdoors Big Bass Splash begins. So I thought that I would really sit down and break down all the different tactics. Sealy Outdoors is a huge tournament, biggest cash payouts of the year. It's an hourly big bass event, so it's a little different. We have that 16 to 24 inch slot limit, so that makes things a little different, even more on strategy. And of course, along with the regular tournament strategies for fishing a big bass event on Lake Fork and kind of how you should think about weighing fish in and all that, we're also going to go in depth on what type of areas to fish, what kind of techniques are working right now and should be working for this tournament. So we're really going to dive in multifaceted tips for you guys today and really, do what we always claim to do, which is try and help you the best we can catch more and bigger fish. I'm really going to try and help you all as much as I can today for those of you that are coming to fish the Sealy Outdoors Big Bass Splash. All right, so let's kick this off with a little bit of just general hourly tournament strategies. The deal with hourly tournaments is there's a whole lot more game plan or gamesmanship, I should say, that goes into weighing your fish in an hourly event like this. You add a 16 to 24 inch slot limit, it adds even more. So on Lake Fork, you can't keep any fish over 16 or under 24. You can't keep any of those fish. So you either have to catch like a 15 and 3/4 inch fish that's kind of fat, or you got to catch one over 24 inches. That involves a lot of strategy because that's two totally different types of fish. And oftentimes you're going to have to fish differently to catch an over versus catching an under the slot fish. Sometimes you can catch either or. And we get some of these spots and some of these techniques on Lake Fork that'll catch either or. They're really good for tournament fishing. Drop shot is one that comes to mind that can catch you either an over or an under at a moment's notice. So we're going to talk some more about that. But one thing you really got to think about when you're fishing an hourly big bass tournament, first of all the results will be being read aloud on the radio, being broadcast, I should say, on the radio on 99.9 KMU is the channel. So you can listen to FM radio in your boat while you're fishing and get the hourly updates, who's weighing in what. If you have an opportunity to cash a check, you should take it. That's my first tip. My first tip is make what you can when you can. If you've got a 195 fish, okay, and they're saying 180 is the bottom of is getting the last check of that hour, you need to go ahead and beat feet and go try to get that check. Generally speaking, the first 2 hours of the day are the easiest ones to cut a check in. People have caught less fish. People tend to, if they get far away from the scale, people will tend to hold their fish for later in the day. So the later in the day you get, the more hourly weigh-ins that have occurred, it's going to be tougher and tougher for you to get a check on that 190 fish or that 2 even fish or whatever you may have. It's just going to get more difficult to get into the money. So be paying attention to those hourly weigh-ins, and if you catch one that's close to 2 pounds on the underside, okay, in the first hour, go to the scale. If you catch an over, go to the scale. Here's the beautiful part about it. If you catch an over, at any time, if you catch an over, go to the scale, because you never know which hour is going to fail to have an overweight in. Over 3 days of this tournament, it's going to be a 3-day event. Some hours are going to have an under 16 inch fish win the hour. Guys, these are big payouts, and I want to say it's like $5,000 for the hour or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It's a pretty big payout for the hour. If you catch an over, just go. And let's say you've got an over that weighs 8 pounds. Well, if somebody comes in that has an over that weighs 9 pounds, just leave your over in the tank. Just hold him until the next hour. They have holding tanks that are very well oxygenated. They'll take care of the fish and all that. So you can actually hold your fish waiting for that hour to show up where there's no other overs in there if heavier overs do show up. Also, if somebody weighs an over in that hour, but your over's bigger, knock them down to second. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of strategy that goes in, but my number one tip, the first tip would be make what you can when you can. When you feel like you have a legit opportunity to get a check, go get that check right now, then worry about going and getting the rest of them. Because one thing about fishing, you never know what's going to happen, especially with a slot limit. You never know if you're going to catch that right perfect size under, or if you're going to be fortunate enough to catch one of those big giant overs. Hey guys, a 24-inch fish is a very long fish. You're not going to catch them every day. It's not an easy thing to accomplish to catch fish that big. That's tip number 2, is you have to make the decision. Do you really want to try and go for the home run and go catch that big giant fish, or do you want to try and target 2 pound, 2 1/4, 2.5 pound fish? To me, when I fished this tournament before I was guiding, it always made a lot more sense to target the unders, at least till I got a little bit of money in my pocket. Then if I did that, I'd go swing for the fence and try to catch an over. But I always wanted to get some checks. One of the best things about the Sealy Outdoors tournament is it's not that hard to get into the money, especially early in the day. They pay a lot of places. There's a lot of entrants. So you have a good opportunity to get some money in your pocket early in the day, then go back out and fish the rest of the day, or get a couple good checks on the first day, then go ahead and target the giants the next day and a half, 2 days, whatever. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is a starting spot. A starting spot can be so critical, man, especially like I said, it's so much easier to cash a check in that first hour or two in these hourly big bass events. So having a spot that you're confident is holding fish, that you've got a good chance to catch a few numbers of fish right off the bat, and hopefully one of those good 2.5 pound unders to go ahead and get some money in your pocket, or maybe, who knows, maybe an over. Just having a spot to get you some bites and give you a chance to get on the board early is one of the most vital things you can do strategically in these big bass hourly tournaments. Now, for those of you that aren't from here, maybe you're coming from out of town, maybe you're not going to get a chance to pre-fish. The best thing I can tell you to do is go subscribe to the Fish Life app Lake Fork Premium Package. It's linked in the description. Fish Life, the life is spelled with a Y. I just updated those spots this week. What it is, I myself that fish Lake Fork, however many times a year I fish it, I don't know, hundreds. Every single month I put fresh waypoints on there that give you areas to fish, kind of what that area is, and the baits that are currently working best within those areas. So if you're just getting to Lake Fork and you need some help kind of figuring out how the bite's going to start off or figuring out where the bite's at, if you go download that premium Lake Fork package on the Fish Life app, you're no doubt going to have you some starting spots that are holding fish. You're going to be able to kind of study that thing, see what the current patterns are, and even then, once you've done that, you can then map out other areas that are similar to that throughout the lake. So it's really going to help you guys better than anything else I can possibly tell you. But in general, for a starting spot right now, one of the things that I really like to look for is what I call a transitional dock. We've kind of finished the turnover. It's kind of done, and these fish are in a summer to fall transition. There's a lot of fish kind of spread out, scattered on the bank, a lot of bait spread out, scattered on the bank. And one of the best places you can fish is going to be docks. So docks that have some good water depth on them, a little bit of a drop off, something to get some deeper water on the end of that dock. And then if you get that along with some brush around that dock, man, those type of docks almost always produce bites first thing in the morning. And what's even better is if you find all that on an eastern bank, a shady bank that stays shady a little bit longer into the morning, it can kind of prolong that early bite. I don't often target specifically docks on Lake Fork. There's so much timber in the lake, but for whatever reason, every year this time of year, docks just seem to be really consistent, especially first thing in the morning. The right docks with the right depth and some brush and some shade, man, they will for sure produce fish first thing in the morning this time of year on Lake Fork. It's every year. I've been fishing this since before I was guiding. When I was fishing the Sealy Outdoors, I had some docks that I started every morning on, and I can't tell you how many little checks we cashed on 2-pounders off those docks in the first hour or two of this tournament. For the second type of starting area you should look for, normally I would be telling you find the healthy grass, find the healthy bass. You know, right now though, there's so many fish so scattered from this post-turnover situation that we're in, this transitional period, that it's not even necessarily about finding the grass. These fish can be on the bank, kind of in random areas, almost anywhere. The best way to find them is just to cruise around looking for immense amounts of small bait fish flickering on the surface, getting chased by bass. Look for those pops on the surface as you're cruising around. Get on your trolling motor and cover a couple miles if you have the opportunity to pre-fish. Or like we talked about with the Fish Life app, we have some of these type of areas on the Fish Life app, Mark, that are describing these areas where they may just be kind of more of a main lake bank. But boy, the bait fish have piled in there. They've stopped there for whatever reason, and the bass are just kind of following around, staying with them. So these areas can be kind of hard to find. You have to cover a lot of water. But if you find an area that has an immense amount of bait fish, you need to think about making that your starting area. Again, shady bank longer into the morning helps, so your eastern banks are gonna help you right off the bat first thing in the morning right now. Then as we get on throughout the day, there's gonna be kind of, you can follow the bait fish around all day. The bait fish are kind of active. They're so shallow, the bait fish are somewhat active all day. Not as much as they seem to be in low light conditions, but throughout the day, you'll see the bait fish getting chased, the bait fish flickering and popping. You'll see an area, it looks like it's almost raining, it's just bait fish popping everywhere. Man, that's a great area to fish, especially around the perimeter of that bait. When you're on that bait fish pattern, there's a couple different ways to catch fish. Probably the most consistent bait that I can tell you to use right now is a